thank you very much, and thank you very much for this opportunity. For me to anchor this really esteemed panel on an extremely important topic, and I'm sure everybody's really looking forward to hearing some leading industry voices on what life in retail is going to go looking forward. A very quick introduction to myself. My name is Rachit Mathur. I'm a managing director and partner with BCG. I lead BCG's consumer and retail practice in India and do a fair amount of my work in the retail space in both food and grocery as well as in fashion, apparel, and discretionary retail. And I'm extremely privileged, to be anchoring this session today. For everybody's excitement, we have some really esteemed names from the industry who've joined us. And I would request everybody to introduce themselves for a minute, and then we will kick it off. So let me ask Venu if you could start and pass on for the other panelists to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Rachit, and good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here, and thanks to ET for inviting me for this panel discussion. I'm Venu Nair, and I'm the MD and CEO of Shoppers Stop. I've been with Shoppers Stop now for just under a year. And before that, I've worked in the retail industry pretty much all my life. The last few years being with Trent, my last role being as CEO of Westside. And prior to that, I was the managing director for Marks & Spencer Reliance, which is the joint venture between M&S and Reliance in India. I've done roles across various functions within the retail industry, and extremely privileged to be here. Thank you.
Sheetal, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Morning, Rachit. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sheetal Mehta. I'm Managing Director for Lifestyle International. We run some of India's largest retail formats, namely Lifestyle Department Store, Max Fashions, Home Center, and Easy Buy. Really privileged to be here on this esteemed panel.
Thank you, Sheetal. Samir, maybe we could have you next.
Good morning, everyone. Before I introduce myself, I'd like to thank you all for having me here. I'm absolutely humbled and thrilled to be on this platform. Like you said, there's a very esteemed panel, and I hope that today, not only me, but everybody else will get to learn a thing or two from everybody. I wear many roles. One, that I'm the Managing Director of Modi Enterprises. I'm also the founder and Managing Director of 24/7, India's first retail stores. Founder of Colorbar Cosmetics, India's only non-MNC MNC competing color cosmetic brand, and also Modika Limited, which is India's fastest growing direct selling company. I believe in a very simple concept in life: Soch badlo, khud ko badlo, dunya badlo. And I lead all my life principles based on the thought process. It's followed by a concept of Miraki, that whatever you do, you need to do it with yourself, putting yourself and love and creativity in it. And with that, I know the introduction time was 60 seconds, sorry. And like the introduction is small. I'd like to just say that it's great to be here, and I look forward to interaction today.
Well, thanks for that, Samir. And I think today's discussion is a lot about Badalna. So let's hope that we can get as much of the right shape of Badalna from all of us. So thank you for that. And Sajeev, maybe you can go. You can get next. And I don't think you need an introduction, but
thank you. Thank you, Rachit. Thank you. Good morning, all. Thank you. Really humbled and honored to be here. Probably may seem like the odd one out in midst of all the achievers here, because I do nothing. I just cook for a living, right from cooking stories to different things. But I also happen to have founded our cookware and appliance business called Wonder Chef. I'm also founder of a 24-hour TV channel on food called Food TV. We also have presence in retail through our F&B concept restaurants, about 65 of those. Also into disseminating information through content, and that is published through many different ways, right from books to websites to apps to everything. And for new things which I'm working on, but more of that later.
Thank you for that, Sanjeev. And like I said again, completely my privilege to be anchoring this discussion today. Of course, I know each one of you, in professional and personal capacity, but I think the five of us, I'm sure, will create some magic today for sure. So let me actually start by addressing the most obvious and the most relevant issue that you think all of us have faced and are gradually, steadily, and hopefully coming out of. And that's just been the effect of COVID-19. And look, as I know that you're all here to express your professional views, but as leaders, and of the stature that you enjoy in India, would love to hear of that's this one story of COVID-19, that would probably be your personal reflection as the world saw, and India saw one of its most profound crises that we have faced. And I mean, this is not an anecdote that is from the world of business, but anything that you have seen or you've personally experienced, which you have found in the spirit of change. So maybe I could request Sheetal if you could go first, and then pass it on to the individual panelists, and then maybe I could close off with my reflections as well.
Yeah. In fact, I'm the COVID has its own share of scars, which it has left on each one of us. But I think it has also done a lot of good things. That's how I look at it. And in one line, in a personal life, if I have to summarize, my learning from this crisis has been I've actually understood the meaning of word essential. Starting from probably even as basic a thing as a food and oxygen, and in a lighter vein, all of us struggled in our own ways. But also, I mean, as corporate executives, we get busy, we don't really take care of our health. And the importance of personal health. I took on cycling, and I'm very proud, that I even clocked 100 kilometers, and nobody who knows me associates me with a sort of a health and fitness, or even spending time with, your loved ones and importance of that in life. I think some of those things, as I look back, I will have a very, very fond memory, and it'll remain with me for the rest of my life, and as corporate executives, otherwise often we ignore some of these things. So I look at this as a very pleasant memory from the COVID.
Yeah, I think I completely connect with what Sheetal just said. I think for COVID, very similar to me, health and fitness, while I've always been reasonably active, I was also active by play. And I play badminton, but then when the gyms were shut, courts were shut, there was no way to do that. And I took to running. I started with walking and got on to running. And now that's become a regular feature in my life. And that's a big shift that has come in. Making up every day morning to do a run, whether it's 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers, and getting newfound friends to connect with was a gain that I had from COVID. And equally on a personal front, I think I was lucky. Our son was studying in the UK, but then because of the COVID, he came back, and we got him with us for over a year. And that family time, otherwise, the son being in uni, we had pretty much resigned ourselves that the most we would get to see him would probably be 2 weeks in a year. And to have this bonus time was very, very phenomenal, and something that's very lasting in our memories. From a work point of view, I think then all of us have learned to working digitally. And the one which, when I reflect back on the last year and a half, and as I said, I joined Shoppers Stop recently, and I recruited a couple of members of my team, both of them based internationally. And what I was surprised by was by the speed at which we were able to go about the whole interviewing recruitment process, where they had to meet various people, including members of the board. And we were able to do all of that in as less as a span of 2 weeks, purely because of the fact that suddenly we have all got used and adapted ourselves to not having that physical interaction and sitting across the table. Otherwise, that same thing could have taken months for people flying down, meeting, and adjusting calendars, getting times to meet, and all of that. And none of that. I mean, we just in our own minds, we've now learned to accept, adapt, and have faith in having remote conversations and taking decisions based on that.
I think the very fact that we are doing this not in a large conference room in a big hotel, well planned many days in advance with complex travel schedules, etc. I think is a very clear reflection of what you said. Sandeep, maybe you could take a quick crack at the next one. I'm sure the world of food experiences has also got a bunch of learnings.
Actually, I resonate with all that is said, but at personal level, I realized that the day lockdown was announced, I had nothing to do. And those first 24 hours, they were disturbing because I'm not used to that. I'm used to doing too many things, and I realized that this is not me. And I think that pushed me to look at opportunities. So essential, I realized what essential was, and I realized that hospitals were essential. And then I realized that there is somebody who's doing food there. So what I could do within next 24 hours, started supplying food with the help of Flight Kitchen from Taj, because flights were shut, but kitchen was there. I could mobilize some people and realize that when the world says that world is shut, still there is so much that's going on which keeps it going. So while my body of work is cooking, but not for healthcare workers, it's for profit, I realized that in next 1 year, I had not watched any of the Netflix or anything. And we scaled that up to about 35 hospitals all across India. So I think that's something that I learned that no matter what, no matter when the people say that the world is shutting down, it's shut down, but there are many new doors that open.
Samir, maybe you could close off, and then let's move to the business side of it. So,
thanks, Rachit. I'd like to split in two ways or two sections: COVID phase 1 and COVID phase 2. I think COVID 1 had its own challenges and own learnings. I think it gave me much more time to myself, which was unheard of in today's life, that a CEO, managing director, founder can actually take time off to evaluate nature and to enjoy the basics of life. So I think phase 1 taught me that you can pause, stop, reset. I mean, those are the 3 words that I can say were the first mantra of phase 1. It made me realize what role women play. It made me realize the importance of having children. My daughter is the de facto president, managing director, CEO of my home. And my younger one became the call of right and the call of holistic experiences. She lives in works and lives and studies in New York. But what also taught me was really COVID-2 took another dig at another way of life. Work from home was something that I'd never believed in, but I had to live with it. What happened was that I had to pause from work. I had to sit down, validate, evaluate, and prioritize my life. In fact, COVID-2, I spent most of my day in people welfare. How to provide meals for my employees, oxygen cylinders, my God. That was my biggest challenge, to arrange for almost 10, 15 oxygen cylinders, right from 30 kgs to 150 kgs. And then I actually spent from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the evening, and then from 12 o'clock at night to 4 a.m. distributing medicines. I mean, I would get a call from somebody saying, this kid in the hospital needs medicine. Remdesivir, do you have it? And I would be saying, I have it, but I don't have a driver. But you tell me the direction, I will come and drop it. So really taught me things which are basic necessities of life that we take for granted. Oxygen, what do you call it? Concentrator, my God. With the entire controversy that came about in what do you call it, at the levels of oxygen. I had to provide oxygen, to deal with China, to deal with frustration, to see people collapsing in front of you, which causes helplessness for me, was something that I learned to live with. But what led me through hope that looking at my daughter, looking at my wife, looking at women per se on what they do at home, got me to experience that. Got me to also evaluate and rethink what I'm doing is right or wrong. I love cooking. I spend much more time in the kitchen cooking with my daughter. In fact, not even my daughter. She was instructing me, Dad, I like to do this. Can you make a green curry for me, a red curry for me, or eaten mess? So with limited resources, what helped me was that Amazon delivered essentials. So cream was something that I wanted delivered. Strawberry, something I wanted delivered. So really taught me to think of things in a different manner, validated what things I thought were stupid, thinking that they aren't stupid, and also think of things that I need to just remove out of my life that don't need it. And like Sanjeev said about cooking, I am mad about cooking, and to a degree that I'm fanatical. And what COVID 1 and 2 taught me, fanaticism is good. It also depleted my budget by shopping on Amazon. In fact, my daughter would walk in every evening to say, Dad, this table's never empty. I said, darling, I always empty it by the evening. She says, but by the morning, it's always full. So really, it taught me also that retail therapy is a great place to go in life.
It's clearly reemphasizes why you are in the convenience retail business. So I think that's very clear. And I think just to round off, a couple of quick reflections from me. I at least realized the power of three things. I think I realized the power of resilience. Just how human resilience at the worst of times actually, adapts and changes and shapes, itself to a slightly anti-behavior that it might have done earlier. And I think there are more than enough examples of how people have, been so resilient in very, very hard times. I think the second thing it has taught me is the power of counsel. And, I know all of you and I know what sort of stress each one as a CAO would undergo, for their companies with so much of strife and so much of stress. Everybody seeing, hard personal times, but who was talking to you at that point in time? And I think every time I would speak to people who are lonely at the top, I think I realized that the power of counsel has got some really great healing effects. And I think the third one is I've realized as individuals, all of us are extremely left-brained. We like numbers, we like analytical answers, we like logic. But fact is, I realized the power of the right side of the brain, where missing the experience of being social, missing the experience of the aroma of great tasting food, missing just the right brain experience of just strolling a street. It really plays a very important role in each one of us individually, and I think we tend to undermine it a lot, and our logical sense always tends to undermine that a lot. At least all three of them. I don't know how much I will do in my own life, but I think clearly I did understand that these are very, very important things going forward. Okay, so let me actually shift and talk about the world of retail and how businesses are coming back. And Sheetal, if I could request you to share, really we all of us are know what happened, lockdown, recoveries. There was a shade of last year, festivals showing the right signs. Things were gradually and steadily coming back towards end of the year, early part of the year. Wave 2 happens, again, a big setback. What's the situation now? How are you seeing the recovery play out, both from a consumer as well as from a supply side perspective? And, how are you looking at the more near future as Lifestyle?
Yeah. So Rachit, I think the good news is that, there are on the demand side, multiple tailwinds which are there. I mean, whether it is, as a result of vaccination or the pent up demand or whatever you want to call that, the pay rises. I think consumer confidence has very sharply risen. And I must say that I was a bit surprised after what we've seen in sort of wave 2, the speed with which consumer confidence has come back. And that's clearly reflecting in the recovery. And we are seeing that across multiple formats, recovery almost, sort of nearing the pre-COVID level. And if you really add up the geographical expansion, new stores, growth in online and digital channels, actually formats have started getting back to the, as a business, as an entity level, into the growth rates. And that's a really good news, Also, one is seeing that, earlier last year, I think the metros, the malls, the fashion vis-a-vis the basics, some of those components were struggling, but one is clearly seeing that some of those parameters also have started showing in, sort of a positive trend. So I think demand side, things obviously looking robust. And if I were to stick my neck out, of course, one doesn't really know what's in store for us as far as the wave 3 is concerned, and one can never be sure nowadays. But I'm really seeing that in next probably quarter or two, large number of industry players, should be able to get back to sort of pre-COVID levels, and therefore entering into the next financial year, one is likely to see over our pre-COVID level, maybe 30, 40, 50% growth rates, and we are going to likely to catch up a large part of what we've lost in our overall base level business, in FY23. So I think overall, keeping the wave 3 concern aside, demand side, things look very, very optimistic. Yes, there are challenges and disruptions on the supply side. Inflation has gone to an extreme level. All the facets of the cost structures are sort of going up. Delivery times and all that also is a bit of a challenge. So if at all, the current concern, one would say that is more on a demand side, and how does one sort of manage the supply side disruptions and make sure that the availability of the product is there, is a bit of a challenge. But I'm sure, if you could deal with the demand, I think demand was the big problem. The fact that sort of almost got back to the level, and we're surprised at the level at which it's come back, I think one can deal with the supplies as well. So overall, I think a very happy state, compared to what one would have thought in the month of May and June. Just 4-5 months and situation has changed quite dramatically.
And Sanjeev, if I could just direct the same question towards you, as I've always believed that out of home, food and experiences actually are a very lead indicator of how consumer sentiment generally is. But what have been your recent observations, as well as, like Sheetal said, putting your neck under the stick a bit to say what's going to happen going forward?
Sure. No, I think it's consistent what Sheetal said. I think when you see recovery, it is not restricted recovery, it is not sector-wise. And I think the overall confidence that we are seeing is much more. So, of course, there is a bit of revenge spend also we are seeing. So the trend comes in not just out of home, out of travel also. So from there on, so hotel industry, we have seen it has, especially on the luxury side, not on the business side, the recovery has been fantastic. In terms of out of home eating, I would say that the recovery is there, but what has happened in last 1 year, that out of home consumption have started to happen at home also. So it's not that people had to go out to give support to that industry. But what is good is that the overall confidence is, I think, very good. Definitely, it is the recovery is much faster than what most people anticipated. Word of caution here: whenever we see recovery is faster, if there were to anything were to happen from here on, people will go back into their cocoon at the same pace. So that's why I think care has to be taken. But otherwise, yes, happy to stick my neck out and say that next 2 quarters we will have everything rocking. Some places you are still not getting anything, no restaurant tables. Places like luxury places like Goa, and there's no restaurant that you can get in today. So good indication when people go out, they support the garment industry, they dress well. So I'm sure all that will follow.
Well, that's very true. And I think, from as we've been, of course, tracking the industry and tracking consumers quite closely, after a real while, you actually see the worm, moving a little bit northeast from a consumer sentiment perspective. I think most lead indicators, be it on spending, be it on footfalls, I think are all headed the right way. But just like Sheetal said, I think all pundits have made the mistake of actually, predicting without knowing, which new, uh, you know, Greek alphabet version of the virus is expected going forward, and that can of course play spoil sport. As BCG, we'd also observed that consumers have, there are certain trends that consumers have actually accelerated. There are certain trends that have actually been a bit of a U-turn. So, India was a very strong premiumizing economy consumer economy at a particular time, and then temporarily, you did see a bit of a pullback from there. And there are certain, consumer trends which are completely new. I think the acceleration on health that I think Sheetal also had spoken about, very distinctive acceleration. We know we were digitizing, but we've digitized it way faster. But there are certain new things too that have picked up. Venu, could you share some of your experiences on what really do you think are going to be the important consumer-led trends, that you expect are not going to wind back that easily, and it's going to be a little bit of the way retailers will have to work going forward?
Sure. And I think there are quite a few things that have changed, some very rapidly, some very subtly. And it's very interesting phase that we are in. We saw some of it after the first wave, and when things started to open up, how some of the behaviors were changing. And then, of course, we had a much more massive second wave, and that's created a slightly different impact. But equally, the big difference which we see even between the first wave and the second wave, and everyone, including myself, when we were reflecting, talking in May, we all said the impact of this is going to be very severe. It'll take a very long time for it to come back. And I think it's fair to say that all of us have been pleasantly surprised with the surge in consumer confidence that we have seen. And that just sort of underlines how consumer behavior, while it is changing, is also quite unpredictable in many ways. Few of the changes which have happened are here to stay, and I think the top of the list for everyone is the rise in e-commerce and online shopping. And I think that there is no debate, no dispute, irrespective of the industry, whether it is apparel, whether it is electronics, whether it is food, the move to digital has happened, and has been oft repeated. Progress that was to happen in 5 years has happened in 1 year, and the more optimists say 10 years has happened in 1 year. Take your pick, but it's happened, and that's, I think, definitely here to stay. There is no two ways about it. But the second shift, which is definitely also there and is being seen, is that people are shifting to brands that they know. While there is greater choice, they also want to make choices that they can trust, and hence brands and loyalty to brands goes back up. The third thing which we are finding increasingly is that customers also are now aching for experience. They've not had experience for quite a while, and anything to do with experience. And the fact that airports are full after the first wave it happened, even more so after the second wave. Like Sanjeev mentioned, restaurants are full. Even in Mumbai, you can't get a restaurant for lunch or dinner over the weekend because they're all fully booked up and days in advance. It's not even as if that day morning you're calling. So people are aching for experience, and they will look out for experience. They will want experience. So that's something which I think has got amplified after the second wave, because it also brought out to them what they were missing. And hence there is almost that desire and want to go out and make that happen. The shift, the whole move away and newer avenues that they have seen, the shift on that, some of it will also depend on how they feel about it. So not all of it will be permanent, and some of it will roll back if they don't like what they see, or if they find that what they used to get was better than what they are currently getting. And as things open up, I think that will happen. And for me, the last shift, which I think has also happened, and more so in India, we are starting to see that in the Western world, it had already happened and got accelerated during COVID, is the awareness of sustainability. And brands will be forced. We ourselves at Shoppers Stop are increasingly looking at how we do business, sustainability of our product, sustainability of the resources that we use. And that's something which our customers are looking for and they are aware of, and they are wanting to be served and wanting to be associated with brands and businesses that are sustainable themselves.
I think it's a very interesting point, and I know that amongst us we can have a long debate on just the topic of sustainability and a more tactical assessment of immediate value versus longer term value and how many of these play out. But I think clearly some very insightful points. Thanks for that. Samir, let me shift to you. I mean, you're somebody who trades and retails brands, but you're also a brand owner. I mean, your retail brands are fairly well known. Your consumer product brands are very well known. In a scenario that is happening today, how are brands actually thinking about growth? I mean, what's really the levers that they think are going to drive the next wave of growth and demand creation if life stays generally stable, at least from a COVID perspective?
Rachit, that's a mouthful of a question. And while others were talking, I've been thinking to myself, what do I talk about when you ask me this question? And I've got a bunch of notes in front of me, so I don't lose track of what I want to say. I think that one of the biggest things that has happened to me and vice versa to retail specifically is the concept impossible to change to I am possible. I think that during lockdown was my greatest challenge in my life. No shops, 2,000 employees, beauty advisors on the road, providing meals to their families, and trying to do sales, which was zero. So really to come from distress, welfare, fund, responsibilities, to going beyond one's comfort. Today, when you talk about change, and I'm in direct selling, retail, and fashion from a consumer cosmetic point of view, I've had to wear many hats, some good, some bad, some distressing, and some taking me to brink of survival. Will I survive? A brand like Calabar, will I survive? Will Calabar survive? How deep are my pockets? And how deep is my desire to succeed beyond life? When you talk about retail has been hit on two fronts. One that is D2C. I mean, I didn't understand this word D2C before COVID. So I had to learn fast D2C. Speed. How do you compete with speed? And three, how do you make retail channel relevant today when the D2C is here to stay? Generation Z, what you call it, has totally changed the way people look at things. I mean, makeup, for example, was never bought in such extensive numbers online. Where women wanted to try products, experience products, have now changed. The entire concept of lipstick effect, recession-free business no longer existed because you couldn't deliver it. From a company point of view, where I see myself today is competing with 600 D2C brands that have emerged overnight during the lockdown. I don't know what happened, where the funding came from, but 600 brands came up. So all of a sudden, brands like ours, which are retail, online, direct selling, and 24 hours, we have to reinvent ourselves and understand entire concept of omnichannel. For example, last 1 month, I have been on the road. I've done Ludhiana, I've done Chandigarh, I've done Ahmedabad, Delhi, Mumbai, meeting retailers, meeting my girls on the counters, motivate them, saying, listen, there is online, but offline plays an important role. So how do you get out of that? I think has become a major focus. Those brands that are not scared to reinvent their way approach of omnichannel, offline experience and online experience. Therefore, for us, I have changed. I mean, my biggest thing is I have changed, therefore the brand has changed. Some parts we have had to accelerate. For example, skincare. We had to prepone skincare by almost a year. Cosmetics, we had to delay by almost 1 year. So also the entire concept of managing, brand to manage against extreme destruction. destruction in consumer base, destruction of goods which expire, and also keep consumer confidence up. You rightly said that consumers are coming back, and this Diwali is a key. Venuji said that some things will go back, some things are there. This is called revenge buying. People have been locked up in their homes, not able to buy. And one of the things that I'm seeing that we are now higher than the 2019 numbers for October. After a very long time, we have found that there's a growth happening upward. But what is also very important to talk about is employees or team members. They've had to change gears overnight. Post-pandemic too, the word steroids in my dictionary has been an overarching role. Steroids to sell, steroids to compete, and having steroids to survive. And therefore, for example, I'm doing what I do for direct selling in retail. I motivate common housewives and common men through Modi Care, and now I've had to do the same thing for our retailers and beauty advisors. So that's a big change. It's a change to say, can offline survive? Can offline be a viable situation against online? And I'm sure all of us on this channel feel that. If not, I'll be surprised. I have brands in lifestyle. I have my brand in Shoppers Stop, and some I am the back counter, some I'm in the front counter. Again, reinventing oneself to say, what do consumers want? What was a luxury pre-COVID? For brands, it's no longer luxury. For brands, it has now become the basic. Sustainability, environment, planet, carbon footprint, recycle. What kind of materials you use for your brands? What is important to Gen Z, which is very different. What is important to people like me? I find myself ancient. So I find when people talk to me, I say, listen, I'm 52 years of age. Pardon me, I don't understand this term offline, online, D2C, SEO, omni-channel. So therefore, you have to educate me. So that one thing that has happened on a rapid scale is really how to educate oneself, and brands have had to educate. For brands to become viable, I mean, for me, I have to hold my position as a number 3 brand. Is something that needs to change. And brands to survive have to re-innovate themselves in overnight. And I think when you ask this question, what should happen? I think those brands that reinvent themselves are the brands that will succeed.
Well, very, very well said, Samir. And I think even our observation always has been that reinvention can happen at 2 times. There is once when either you are facing a crisis or the industry is facing a crisis and you need a reinvention. The other is actually when you reinvent when things are good, and it is also the time when, in an anticipation that at the end of the day, time does catch up, both with brands as well as with banner retail. So how do you make sure that you're running a little ahead of the cycle than actually wait for the crisis and only then to reinvent? So I think, fairly well made points. Sheetal, let me just take this back to you. I think, and this will just make it a little bit more operational per se, but you spoke about inherently demand coming back. Now, yes, consumer penchant to purchase or buy is clearly showing the right direction, but you have to make it happen as a retailer, as a brand. How do you make it happen? How do you tap this demand and really accelerate it in terms of benefits for you and your consumer in tandem? And what at least are you looking at over the next 3 to 6 months, which are going to not just accelerate the consumer behavior and demand, but more importantly, accelerate it for a retail player?
Understood, Rachit. In fact, let me take a step back. We had to see, because I'm a long-term, while online is growing, but I have a very, very sort of optimistic view of the world of physical retail, and we are a company with a very sort of bullish projections as far as the physical retail is concerned. So in fact, initially it started off with how do you build the consumer confidence, and beyond the safety and various other aspects, and it may sound small points, Rachit, but a very, very subtle points like even at a time where the cash was an issue, you're loaded with huge inventory. Our number one focus for our store was how do we make sure that the freshness is high, even at the cost of our inventory cover going completely out of whack. One would be tempted to sell the old stock, but we are saying that if the customer walk-in is not happening, customer is taking a risk and walking into your store, how do you make sure that the product is fresh? Also, other very small point, but I think we have a very, very firm view on this is that we will never sell a product online or not allow anything on online which is at a discount, and create this sort of perception in the minds of the consumer that online gives you better pricing. So making sure that price parity is there, in fact erring towards the store having a attractive pricing than the online, even at the cost of online growth. It's something which we are, those are some of the very basic foundational pieces as guardrails we sort of put in place before we sort of get into the, accelerating the demand. Coming to the demand, of course, starting from a product, initially, how do you sort of focus on the products which are relevant when the sort of work from home, now there is more of a back to work, how do you make sure that your product assortments are more aligned with that? Entry into some of the newer product categories, starting from lingerie, innerwear, strengthening our kids portfolio, a home entire portfolio where the work from home is going on. How do you expand and strengthen? So whole host of work was done in a product area to accelerate the demand. And then onto the store, starting with how do you make sure that the relevance of the store itself in this new normal post-COVID is sort of a fine-tuned, right? Starting from customer has not yet even walked into the store. What can you do and how can your store connect? The WhatsApp commerce, the video calling, and the whole host of works. Starting from there, what can you do and how can you digitally connect with your customers while they're inside the store, right? And we have done huge set of work in that also. We have a lot of hyper-local, very personalized sort of QR code and experiences given to the customer while he or she is sort of shopping inside the store. And going up to even when she has left the store, how do you sort of still connect with them? So we have something called Max Your Look. So if you bought a certain garment, we immediately to you at an individual send you a look that can you sort of shop 1, 2, or 3 to complete what you already shopped in the store. And now that you are at home, click here and we take you to an online store and deliver it to your home, right? So entire pre, during, post experience of the customer visiting the store has been completely reimagined. And the last is the role of geographic, right? The presence, etc. So we're seeing that the demand, even pre-COVID, tier 2 and tier 3 was really spiking up. It has only got further accelerated. In fact, more than 1/3 of our business now comes from tier 2 and 3. So entire driving expansion and presence where the customer is. I'm happy to say that even at a time where there is a little bit of risk lurking around, as Sanjeev was saying, we are opening a couple of stores a week right now as we speak as an organization. And we have only accelerated our speed of expansion compared to pre-COVID levels. So we have the take and we believe that sort of a demand is there in the market, which needs to be exploited. And while we do that, we're not going to ignore the role of the online and the omni. Happy to say that the kind of .coms we have created, the kind of apps we have created for our own sort of formats, very large business. In fact, despite being available on various marketplaces, upwards of 60% of our business happens through our own site, where millions and millions of apps customers have downloaded, right? So strengthening online, omni, as well as sort of expanding our footprint into the smaller markets and catchments where the customer is. So broadly, the mantra is that if you really focus on these two things, what is the product which customer is looking at? And second is making sure that you are present in the life of the customer, where the customer is at home, customer in the store, customer is in metro, customer is in tier 3, customer is wants to shop on own.com or wants to shop in marketplace. As long as you make sure that the price parity is there, making sure that you are where the customer is, and therefore almost adopt a mantra of anytime, anywhere, and anywhere. Right, and that's what we are really doing that, and we believe that that's going to pay us handsomely, and we'll be able to. And that's a reason that medical issue aside, I think we are really seeing that next 12 months could be an era of rapid growth for us.
No, so Sheetal, just a quick supplementary question here. Are you seeing the new consumer, or not the new consumer, but the consumer once they're back? What is the new value equation they have? Are you finding them to be more price sensitive in some form, or actually finding them less price sensitive versus what behavior yesteryears used to be?
No, we have a portfolio, and we are seeing sort of two divergent views, So we are seeing a set of customer which is seeking more and on more value, and we continue to sort of work on sharpening our value perception. And value is, in our view, is not just price. I think at a lowest possible price, how do you make sure that you offer the best quality product, variety, freshness, trends, so on and so forth. But we are also seeing on the premium end of the market where customers are sort of indulging into a bit of a revenge shopping, and therefore our premium portfolio, particularly the lifestyle, is also showing a huge traction. So it's one of those unique period where we are seeing that our value formats as well as our premium formats both seem to be firing on all cylinders, right? And therefore there's no single trend that everybody is sort of seeking value. We are seeing a pockets where customer is actually sharply coming back and seeking more exclusive products and premiumization as well.
That is very insightful, Sheetal. Thanks for that. And we have in BCG, we do this global analysis around points in time that when economies or consumer sentiment takes a deep hit, and when they come back, what really accelerates the comeback. And there are of course a range of reasons why the acceleration happens, but one of the reasons deceleration happens is inflation. That if a consumer sentiment actually meets inflation, it's not inflation which suppresses, it's inflation which suppresses. So, if I could pull you into this, and Sheetal actually alluded to this earlier, we've seen hyperinflation, right? We saw, what happened with cotton, potentially, over the last many months. Food is, of course, in the recent times, you're seeing fuel is, the lesser said the better. You add it all together, when the inputs are accelerating at this level. On top of that, you see acceleration. And actually, but salaries are up. We know that cost of doing business and the cost of product both have gone up. Now, while you're trying to build demand, a situation like this can be quite detrimental. How are you seeing the situation play out? And from managing a P&L perspective, where and how are you at least striking the balance?
I think the prices, and at the moment, obviously, it is extremely dynamic, and there is a lot of shortages. Well, cotton prices are very high, gone up by 30-40% from where they were, in some cases higher, to the extent where almost availability is more important than price. So it's almost coming down to that. And I think that is a fact. And interestingly, we had seen a very similar phenomenon just after the first wave as well. And we had seen this happen. And I think in each of these cases, it is the sudden surge in demand as well, which has driven a lot of it. And as all of us said, the consumer confidence and the consumer demand has gone up very sharply. And obviously, coupled with that, the fact that people have been much more conservative after the second wave in terms of their buying, and hence the stock levels have been low, and hence the demand being even higher. I think that is a reality. In terms of managing it and how one manages it, there are multiple ways that one has to do it in terms of looking at your product itself and making sure you're getting the right product. Because the one thing that doesn't change is finally getting the right product to the customer and the consumer. Newness works, freshness works, and there is no way that you can compromise on that. Having product that is right, having the latest trends, which is in demand, having freshness every single month, and having weekly drops is essential for the business to work. So I think there can be no compromise on that, and that has to be the focus. That is the focus for us at Shoppers Stop, making sure that we are getting the product there and getting it in front of the customer. Getting the value right is very important, and value is not just about price. It is about the total package that you offer to the customer, and making sure that you're giving enough to the customer for them to be able to feel that they're buying right is equally important, and that's the second thing which we are looking at. In terms of cost itself, and I think in a way we are all by default, each of the businesses across the world relooked at their costs quite sharply and acutely during the pandemic, and that is something which has helped, and it has put I think everyone's P&L has got sharpened and more efficient by default. I mean, by default is not the right word, by the necessity of the reasoning. And Samirji mentioned about the various things that they had to do during the pandemic, and that's something which we at Shopper Stop reviewed our cost base. We made sure that we have got the stores that we have are efficient, are productive, relooked at the categories that we are in and rejigged the categories that don't work for us and equally bring in categories that work and are better. I mean, as a simple example, casual wear, comfort wear obviously does well. And we've now created Sneaker Club because when we looked at our portfolio and our business, we've got all of the sports brands in our store. Can we create a destination for sneakers? Because sneakers is obviously the one big winner in this whole COVID period. Everyone's gone to athleisure, into sportswear. So we created Sneaker Club and became a destination for sneakers. That's something which is playing well for us. And hence, we are able to be more efficient, more productive in there. So I think that is, there are various ways by which you will have to look at the becoming more productive. And that's what each of us are doing. The inflation is a reality that's here. How long it will stay, time will tell. My own gut feel is that it will soften in the next 6 to 8 weeks as the new fresh, especially in the case of cotton, as a fresh supply of cotton comes. But in terms of we as a business, we are not compromising on getting freshness into the store, getting product on the floor, because that's the most important thing. And that's what we are working on. Equally relooking at the categories and what we do. On that front, also having that mix, and we as a retailer, we've got a good mix. We've got the premium international brands. We've got the best of the national brands in our stores, and we have our own private brands. And by having that mix across beauty and apparel, we are able to give that complete offering to the customer in terms of where they are. As Sheetal said, we are finding while people are trading down, the premium categories are doing extremely well. During this, in the last 8 to 10 weeks, we've seen the premium brands are doing exceptionally well across beauty and apparel and accessories. I mean, we are very strong in watches, sunglasses, and everywhere we find that the customer is willing to buy a brand if he is associated with it, he trusts it and knows it. And hence, as a department store offering a wide portfolio across national, international, and at the same time having value brands within our own private brands, we are able to give a great offer to our customers, and that's what's working.
No, I think very true. And I always believe that department stores as well as grocery stores, and just analyzing how baskets move and how purchase behavior move actually is the most insightful way of observing consumer behavior, because that is exhibited behavior.
And that's very true. I mean, when we look at our own business, we've now had 6 quarters of consecutive increases in our basket size. So right through COVID, we've had the basket size go up every single quarter. I mean, if we look at it over the previous period. So that's something which is insightful as well. So customers are coming in, they're buying more. And that's a simple fact.
I think in the spirit of the conversation around, rebuilding demand, let me get Sanjeev in. And I think, Sanjeev, all of us would agree and appreciate the fact that, if you look at a brand and you look at a consumer, the number of touch points have been actually, multiplying exponentially. Yesterday it was, brand, retailer, and, a few marketing messages could be on TV, could be on some out-of-home media. And then there was a consumer. But today you have got social media, we've got OTT, we've got, the number of, events and platforms, and some online and some offline. The brand is actually, trying to own as many of these touch points. But each touch point actually comes with a combination of a cost and an ROI, right? So it is not that you can own it all. So how are you looking at, as you look at this, expanding range of, consumer touch points, how does one actually think about increasing your share in these touch points?
Sure. Very good question, Rachit. I think Venu at the beginning talked about experience, right? So when we are trying to look at touch points for a brand engagement, if I would say, then the key here is that if we look at last 1.5 years, video became something which became very, very important, and it was because digital intervention was more, but video consumption started to go up. And if I were to say that video is being consumed by looking at it and by hearing it, so any brand engagement, if that is there, has to be more sensorial. The experience of it, senses are very important. And I think that sensorial, I think first understanding of it. So let's look at the category of hotels and restaurants, the experience. Otherwise, you're eating at home. Why would you pay a premium to eat? There's a skill that is required, but there's an experience that's there. And it's more a sensorial experience that there. You don't go to a restaurant because the price was less or more. You don't even know how much it costs, right? It's more about the experience. Now, if I were to look at a boring category like cookware through our Wonderchef, one of the things that we understood that the product can touch a consumer, or we can create other engagements through that. So while everything was there, we created fashion into cookware. That's where what Samir talked about on innovation, right? We said that cooking cannot be boring. Cooking has to be interesting, exciting, brought in color, brought in fashion. And then we realized that, okay, now if it is the health that is important, we will not talk about how do you cook healthy food in it. The touch points that we are creating now are that if you cook in Wonderchef pans, it will make you look good. How? Because you will use less oil, you will lose weight, and you will create a desire to look like that. So the promoters that are there, we want to make sure that it is like some hotel chain always had top of the line, good looking staff always. Some never paid that heat, right? So I would say that in terms of digital intervention is a given. I think we will keep on bringing in sharpness into it, and AI and ML will help a lot into that. I think those things will become more and more sharp. That technology will take care. It's up to brands and retailers how fast they will adopt. I think it's a given. We don't have to think. Only thing I would say that creating your own community at first. So it's a very tricky world that we are living in today, that each person is individual. It's like in Ayurveda, one of the reasons Ayurveda has not been able to grow is that वो नाड़ी देख के बताना पड़ता है हर की आपको क्या प्रॉब्लम है, आपकी क्या है, वातपत, whatever, right? But that creates the problem that each person is individual, but it also creates an opportunity which through AI and ML, you can reach one person at a time. And how do you create a bigger community through that? What is so let's say a Facebook has something called a look alike, that somebody like him or her. I think each person, each business, each brand, each retailer has to start creating look alikes very, very sharply and start to target them. And as many senses we can work on more. So I would say larger community targeted individually through different senses would be, I would like to sum up, and that's exactly how we try and work. Each person is an influencer, micro, but can have the power of macro influence. And what they are saying is important to us. It's not what I want you to wear. It is what would you like to wear, and can I bring that to you? It's maybe set of 5 designs. Would you want next trend to be like this? How many people are saying this? Maybe a touch point created at the store itself, that this is the line that I would like to see next, and option of 5. And that is what will be created. So summing it up, one person at a time, creating a large community, creating sensorial experiences for them through innovation, and let technology help us. And more technology easier it is.
Lots of points there, Sanjeev, and but I was just reflecting, and I was just looking back. I think we probably had a exchange of about 7-8 questions amongst us, but the word digital just seems to be coming back in every answer. Be it on the product side, be it on the consumer side, be it on on just how the larger business ecosystem is evolving. Fact of the matter is that there used to be a point in time where we used to say that the world's most abused word was strategy. I think right now it seems to be digital transformation. Everybody seems to be on it, and honestly, I don't know how much of the needle has moved, and candidly, as much as I speak to many of the business leaders, I think the fundamental questions on what's really the relevant technology with the relevant business case, in digital transformation, I don't think too many people have still figured that out. I think it's an important question, and I would love to hear everyone on this topic, but on a very specific theme within it. Samir, could I first request you to how do you think about repurposing the physical stores now in terms of for increasing footfalls? Because it has got you mentioned and spoke about an orientation of omni-channeling, and but I think let's start with the store first to say that what's really the change, what really are you now going to change about the ways many of these physical assets now run.
Rachit, I think that's a very valid question, very wide question. I think post-pandemic, the retailer and the seller in retail has become very important. But all of a sudden, you have to remotivate, reevaluate, and revalidate the same thing that you were doing earlier. Competing with omni-channel. For us, for example, a promotion that we did on e-com now has to match the promotion we did do offline. Dealing with, I want to also say thank you to Sheetalji, Venuji, and Sanjeev, because some of the things that they are doing are actually pushing us in physical stores to change. We are the top 3 brands in lifestyle and Shoppers Stop, and they are now pushing us that why should we not be different? What is different about Color Bar that will make them keep us? Sanjeev ji said about the cooker being now talking about weight loss, and the features that we thought were not important has suddenly become important. Sustainability, cause, what are you doing for the planet, carbon footprint. These things you have to innovate in and put out there. For physical stores, for example, we have to now, for girls and retailers, teach them how to compete with information that is commonly available on your phones and e-com. How do you add information like QR codes? Tier 2, Tier 3 have become very important. Those were not important earlier for us, at least, because our consumers are products of luxury. And now we have to rethink of, in physical stores, how to bring this luxury in some form or other in Tier 2, Tier 3, and therefore launch new brands. I think that also, for example, when I started the company Color Bar, I went to deep distribution. At that time, my father said to me, Samir, you can't go deep. You have to give one-to-one experience for makeup. Now that mantra changed immediately after post-COVID. It doesn't matter on one-to-one. It matters on availability. So you're competing with online availability. Therefore, for example, for us, we are adding 5,000 new stores in the next 5 months because it's a cause of survival. And physical stores experience is very, 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 very important. And the single most product is no longer my brands. My single most product is retailer, the people, the retailer and the beauty advisor, because they are the ones that will make or break the brand. And all of a sudden, retailer has become king. I just want to give one example of one word, Apple versus IBM. Think was IBM and therefore lost. And Apple bought the concept of think different. And all of a sudden, as a retailer, I have to think different. I have to think different in my promotion, my product offerings. What can I bring quickly? What can I do to be relevant? Now, the consumer who's coming into your store, for example, I was in Ahmedabad for the first time after not first time, after many years, I was behind the counter selling. So I was teaching my girls how to sell. And actually, I felt very good because I made in 2 counters, I made a sale of 25,000 rupees in one and 40,000 rupees in the other. So really that reset who you are and what you are as a brand, reset what a physical stores mean, being tech-in, which is very important. And we are in, for example, magic mirrors to apply makeup without trying it. This entire concept, social distancing and touch, has become no touch, has become a very important buzzword. That don't touch me, but show me how makeup works. In fact, I was in a competition store and I got my hand slapped because the girl said to me, "You can't pick up my product." So but I said to her, "But how will I try it? How will I see the color?" She said, "Too bad. I can show you by picking it up, but you can't touch." So now these have become very important aspects of customer service, very important of experiencing, as well as what do you do to give an online experience offline.
Very true. Very true, Samir.
And also, one more last,
yeah.
this is one last. It's like brand like Venuji and Sheetalji are there. Their people, their merchandisers are just pushing us, saying, "Think different. What you are giving to us 5 years from now, I want it now." So those are the things that have changed dramatically for retailers and people who are selling on offline channels.
So very true, Samir. I think some of these, the new tricks of the trade definitely are super helpful. As you think about the next wave of consumer engagement. But digital consumer engagement, and Sheetal, if I could bring you here, I think you spoke about, and I thought very articulately about how you have invested behind consumer engagement and consumer commerce, right? Because one can always spend a lot of money on digital marketing or on social and so on, but at the end of the day, it has to pay back in terms of either offline or online commerce. Could you help us with at least the top 2 or 3 learnings and maybe even one mistake that you would have made, because the world of digital is always very alluring, but candidly the business cases are hard to find.
Rachit, I think digital, we're fortunate that we were one of the few organizations which saw this well in advance, and we really deeply invested into digital, and just COVID has just accelerated the journey. And I think that deep capabilities which we built in was one of the reasons why we decided to not be on, let's say, to be on marketplaces. We built our own .coms, our own apps. And over the last 4 or 5 years, millions of consumers have been sort of onboarded digitally. And that is one of the big strengths which we brought in. And COVID really sort of proved that strength led to a tremendous business transformation. In fact, beyond the online and the omni business, we also, over the last 12 to 18 months, we started working on particularly the store, because we saw that store is where the future lies. And how do you make sure that you are to those consumers who have shopped in big baskets and the Amazons of the world, and just about everybody has done that during COVID. When they walk into the store, how are you able to provide that digital experience? And therefore, we have looked at the customer journey while she is there at home. And if she wants to interact with the store on WhatsApp, chat and shop, deliver in 4 hours, either through a chat or a video calling, we've sort of really developed that capability. Or when she's actually walking into it, with the kind of investment which we've done in our data labs and the analytics, we are able to now identify customer in a real time at a very hyper personalization level. And therefore, today, if you walk into the Max stores and scan the QR code, it will recognize depending on who you are. And that algorithm sort of offers that bit of a gamification and digital experience, whereby certain real-time coupons are given, and it is all based on not just to giving coupons and discounts to increase sale, but this is to drive a specific behavior which we believe is important to sort of build a stickiness in the loyalty. Or let's take an example of if you walk into the store. Now, store is only 10,000 or 20,000 square feet, but how do you see the store and have an access to virtual store 50,000 or 100,000 square feet? In Etho, we have not only started offering the missing size, missing styles, missing products, but we are now building capabilities where there are exclusive categories and product ranges which will be built, which will actually not be even available in the store, but it will be still available in the store, right, to a customer who's walking in. And therefore, you have an access while you are in the store. With the assisted shopping, you will have an access to those categories which will be home delivered, right? And then if you walk out of the store, complete the look, which I spoken a little while back, completing the look, and again, digitally making sure that we are in connect. I think that entire experience which we are providing to our customer pre, during, and post, believe that I think will make sure that the in-store digital experience will be, sort of really, really great. And you were also talking about, the ROI part. And I think I can happy to say that, for the kind of value pricing which we have, where you're selling 400 rupees, 500 rupees garment, our ROI clearly sort of reflects. And we are one of those very few online business, if you do a standalone online profitability, is able to generate profit, right? So that's one metric. Another side, despite the COVID challenges, your productivity, right? Whether it is manpower productivity, whether it is your space productivity, whether it is your inventory productivity, all those sort of metrics are significantly up. And we believe that I think our investments in digital and technology has really sort of helped us. So we are very, very happy with the kind of ROI which we've seen, and things are only going to get better as we go into the future.
Okay. Maybe Venu, you could take it on as well. I mean, I did want to talk to you as a department store player, and directly loosely said, you're an organized marketplace always, with a variety of brands, playing a wide range of price points, full width of merchandise, and having your offering as well as brand offerings in the store, and in a competitive environment like today between on the online side. What have been some of your key learnings in the digital journey, which has been accelerated in recent times? But more importantly, how have you who got measured investments at the end of the day, played out between where to invest this money digitally from?
Thanks, Rachit. As you rightly said, one of the most frequently and oft repeated used phrases is digital transformation. And I think it's because of the need of the hour that every retailer, every brand has gone through it, because digital itself has fast forwarded 5 years in 6 months. So that's the reality of life. But at the same time, and if I were to specifically talk about Shoppers Stop and the word digital, and I'll expand on digital itself. It's not just, digital first and foremost on the front end, the commerce side of it, and that's obviously crucial, critical. And we transformed ourselves into a omni-channel retailer over a period of time, where today every single of our 81 department store and 120 plus beauty stores are all linked real time onto shopperstop.com. So now our customer has a much wider choice available on shopperstop.com real time. And that's important. Combine that with the fact that these are spread over 40 cities, which means that we are also able to serve to the customers, reach the customer much faster, despite the fact that they're shopping from the comfort of their home, and also equally being able to do it at a much more efficient point, much more efficient way from a cost point of view, because of the fact that we've got effectively our portfolio and our offer is spread closest to where the customer is. So that's the one thing from a commerce point of view. But we are going way beyond that as well. So while shopperstop.com, our partnership with Marketplace, Amazon, our Estee Lauder site that we manage from the back, all of that's important from a commerce point of view. Equally, the second area we are investing, and we have invested and continuing to invest very heavily into, is analytics and insights. Because we are blessed with loyal customers, part of our First Citizen loyalty program, which, as all of you know, is one of the oldest and most recognized, well-known loyalty program. The ability for us to use the insights that we get from our customers in the way they engage with us both in the store and online. And that gives us the ability to look at what they're buying, what is their preference, and then to be able to reach them on a much more personalized basis based on what they're looking for. And equally to also look forward, you use the insights to also look at what are they likely to be wanting. So the whole propensity modeling that we are able to do using analytics. So that becomes a very, very important part. And that's something which we have invested into. We created a data warehouse, a data lake, and we are now building onto that. Equally, also then the merchandising and product planning part. And we invested into S4 HANA and the retail module of S4 HANA. We are probably one of the very few retailers who have gone into that. And what that does is the ability to plan forward and also manage our allocation and replenishment, not just automatically, but also using AI ML to think forward there and to be able to correct stock at the right locations. Because not to forget, as I said right at the beginning, our stores are fulfillment centers for online as well as for customers walking into the store. So the demand at each of the locations has become much more dynamic now. It's not just what the customer who's walking in is buying. It's also what the customer is shopping on shopperstop.com. And that customer might be getting fulfilled from a very different location to where they've shopped. Our ability to be able to do that in the most efficient way, because of the fact that we have the technology behind it to be able to do that, is very, very vital. And that's just a few of the examples where we are investing into digital. So it's not just the front end commerce, when that's the most obvious one, when especially in the retail industry, when anyone thinks of digital, it's almost always e-commerce, but it goes way beyond. And I think that's what in this phase, each of us as retailers have to do. Certainly at ShopperStop, that's an area we are going into very, very deep. And again, if I look at beauty as an area, and Sameerji touched upon the requirement the customer are now looking for, whether it is magic mirrors, whether it is the ability to be able to look at how the makeup looks on them without really applying it, and bringing in those the technical innovations on, like on shopperstop.com, we've moved on to, I mean, search and searching words was always there, but we've now also got Snap Find Buy, where you can just take a picture on the app and the app will find similar looking products for you. And that's something which it's just how do you make it more convenient, easier for the customer to shop. When it comes to beauty, again, on beauty, we've got multiple brands, multiple products. How do you make the navigation easy? How do you separate out the luxury brands from the premium brands? Because that's a different customer. On the app, in the store, physically, it's always possible. But in the app, looking at what the customer is looking for and using AI then to be able to recommend to them what they want to buy. Those are some of the things where the use of technology is already happening, and that's where we are investing to get much better at. What our customers will see over the next 3 to 6 months is a much better interface because of that, but also a lot more because of the back-end investments that are happening to make that happen.
I think great points, and I know that, we are just about 5 minutes left for this conversation. And, at least, working with many of you and on this famed topic of digital transformation, I think, in BCG, we always follow what is called as the 10-20-70 rule. 10% of the challenge, honestly, is around, data and the algorithms and so on. It's 20%, which is, when you're, defining it the right way, with a consumer customer lens. But 70% of it is actually internal change management, to adopt the digital ways of work and, to get, to no longer question the data, but what it is saying, to let the data transfer from, desk A to desk B to desk C, without actually having debates on, who's right and who's wrong. I think those ways of working really is when, true value gets unlocked in the case of digital. I think the world of analytics and data will always be exciting that way. So I think, look, I know that, we've just got another 3-4 minutes left, but I thought I would as leaders of this of the retail industry, I just wanted a single statement reflection from you or advice from you going forward. We've always believed that crisis brings the next wave of opportunity. And at least as you as leaders, how are you looking at that opportunity, going forward? I think would love to hear from you. So Sajeev, if you could, share your one-liner, and then maybe Sheetal, I could request you for one.
Sure, Rachit. I think focus is something. So that when I used to be a chef in a restaurant in New Zealand, I started teaching people there, and I realized power of teaching. That created a community which was different, and they started coming to the restaurant more. So I realized that the content, which was teaching how to cook, helped me create community, and that helped commerce. So 3 C's in our business is something that we have stayed focused towards, and then have the agility to move and look at what the world would go towards, and embrace that quicker than just say that, okay, I'll wait for perfection. So I normally say this, perfection ke liye Amir Khan ko chhod dete hain, hum bhagte hain. So agility, I think, is something that I would say is something that we have held, whether it's digital transformation, whatever we say. So I would say that, be agile.
Sheetal, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just 2 thoughts, Rachit, in terms of who the winner of future could look like. I think in terms of to put it very, very succinctly, I think in terms of capability, an organization which is able to manage single view of the customer, particularly in the era of, the Omni, as well as the single view of inventory, and seamlessly being able to manage that with the help of technology. I think that capability, whoever is able to build that, is where the, sort of a win is going to happen in terms of capability wise. And second is, I think customer first has been, I think every organization wants to be customer centric, but I think this COVID has taught us that if you want to be customer centric, you will have to be first people centric. And in people, I'm referring to your employees, your vendors, your landlords, and many of these relationships have been really tested in this turbulent time, and real character of the organization have been revealed. And therefore, your ability to put people first, if you want to be customer first in terms of a principle, I think those are the 2 big call outs from my side.
No, thanks for that, Sheetal. And I think I have this favorite slide, which I use in many of our conversations, with our clients, and it is, do you have the capability or the ability to be midair as a pilot, but have the ability to upgrade your engine while in midair? It's literally that, because you get it right, it's a fall. So you get it wrong, it's a fall. You get it right, while in flight, while you're running an everyday business, but you're actually going to take the flight, a few thousand feet forward. So I think that ability and that capability really is going to be what everybody is going to be discovering. And let me just use this opportunity to once again thank you, the 4 of you, and thank you not for sharing your thoughts for this forum, but I think more importantly, thank you for being the leaders you are for this industry. Thank you for all that you are doing for the industry, for all the people that who are working for you. But more importantly, thank you on behalf of all the people that all 4 of you are inspiring. It has been hard times, but the resilience and the spirit with which we all seem to be coming back is all thanks to your leadership. So much appreciated. And I'll again, the last word of thanks for going to ET Retail for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts today.